Hello, my friends. Hope you had a fantastic day or night wherever you are. This week, I'm back talking to Emma all about mindset, work-life balance, but also what is our North Star and how can we make sure that we are moving forward to it. So if you did enjoy this episode, why not be subscribed so you don't miss next week's interview, and I'll see you in just a moment's time.
So I'm Emma, aka Snippy. I'm a success and resilience coach, and I specialise in working with people in property and construction on theming, fraud, and all of that jazz.
Hurrah. Thanks so much for the time, Emma. Lovely to see you again. This time in a recorded conversation. There's lots going on. Lots of things are happening. Things are slowing down. People are concerned. People don't know which way's up in some cases. But I actually was going to start the show a different way. But I think I'm going to ask you a thing that you gave me the opportunity to think about, which was work-life balance being very personal. Because I think it's kind of a buzz conversation at the moment around I need it to be 4 days a week and I need it to pay me lots of money so I can have lots of family balance, right? But do we agree with that? What do we think? What is work-life balance?
You're not messing about, are you?
No,
You're like
I'm
straight
straight
in
in.
there
I
with
love it.
the reputation. I'll allow that. So we can talk about this wider in general because it's definitely something that comes up when you're self-employed or have a small business. I'm sure it's something you come across. I myself, it's you leave the big corporate shiny world on this idea that you can work 2 days a week and earn six figures just being in flow and enjoying your life. And it's not as simple as that. But if I can scale it back as well to property and construction industry, there is so much out there at the moment around, and possibly other office-based to be fair, but around hybrid working, whether you be in the office, whether you be at work at home, where you're working for. If you're working on the beach, does that count? Does work from home mean literally you should be at your kitchen table? And it all plays into this idea of work-life balance and also trust. So I'm finding that generally speaking, in my industry, in the property industry, there's a lot of pushback against it because there are still people, old school thinkers typically, who think if they can't see you working, that you're not working hard enough, and they're not trusting you to work. And this builds into the whole, work hard, not smart, or smart, not hard, however you want to do it. And we should be seen to be burning out for our job. If we're not at the edge of a breakdown, are we doing it properly, etc., etc. So there's a lot of that at play. But the thing with work-life balance, which people don't seem to understand and don't seem to appreciate, is it's so individual, it's specific for you, right? It's a very you thing. And it very much depends as well where you are in your life, where you are in your career, what your aims are. If like anything, the payment we make now pays off later, right? So the pain now gives us the win later. If right now our aim is to be home for our family, to build relationships, maybe we've just started dating, maybe we've got a bit of money and we're going out, maybe we're newly single, that thing like that, then perhaps work wants to take a little bit of a back seat and life wants to step it up more. If you can see that big promotion on the high
On the horizon.
horizon, that's what I done. Horizon, thank you, that long thing that we can never quite get to. If we can see the promotion on the horizon, or we're building our business up as you and I have experienced, and you've got these big ideas and these big dreams, you probably can't afford to coast. And possibly you need to put a little bit more into it than you might otherwise. So work-life balance very much depends on who you are as an individual, what you get out of work, how much you enjoy it, and also what your long-term aims are. It's not fair to just say to everybody, really, you should be aiming to work 4 days a week, blah, 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 blah. You should be aiming to earn this much money, put this much effort in, you shouldn't work after six. It's so personal. But one thing I do say to all my clients, and I find this is quite controversial, is I do believe we should all only work to 80% most of the time. 80%. And the reason being, if you think about it, quite obvious, no matter what you do, if you work for somebody else, they're going to expect more from you at some point. You've always got to be able to step up a gear. And if you don't leave yourself that wiggle room, you've got nowhere to go. And in my industry specifically, and I'm sure many others in property, there is an attitude, there is a glorification of burnout. If you need to be on the edge of burnout to be seen to be working hard, and if you're giving 100%, 10%, you know, that's what they're going to expect. They want more. Whatever you give, people assume that's what you're there to give. They don't expect you to go higher or lower most of the time. So if you're 80%, people accept that. That's your balance. And you're leaving yourself mental health wiggle room.
I completely agree, and I think it's something which we don't talk about enough, which is this illusion or this reality, which is, as you say, being very personal, right? For some people, that'll be 4 days a week, earning the same money, etc., etc., etc. For other people, it will be, actually, you know what? I got to do these passion projects and still make a good living. Actually, you know what? I get exactly. I get a legacy piece. I get to do the podcast. I get to do this bit of marketing, whatever it may be. I get to give back to the city, whatever it may be, because I can still make. Because when I'm actually making commercial money, I'm making good commercial money, right? And I think sometimes we look at what we say and do, and we don't ask the reasoning behind why we're doing it first, right? And it leans into some of the other stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, but the crux, and I think is important because me and you will both talk from a place of abundance, and we'll both talk from a place of a level of entitlement because we live and we work for ourselves, right? We don't have a boss, quote unquote, right? And the issue, I think, can come when it comes to hustle culture is, and I'm for hustle culture to an extent. You should do a lot of smart working, and you should work hard on that smart working, and etc. It's actually about doing a lot of smart work, right? So it's using technology, leveraging your brand, leveraging your marketing, etc., etc., to do all these things to give you that freedom, right? But that only comes from a place of abundance where you work for yourself, right? If you're not going to do that, in most cases, you're not going to do that unless you really, really love the culture and it's down to the job and etc. Right? Like 95% of people who have a job, they're doing it because they need to do it. Right? They're doing it because it needs to pay the bills. They have a job that pays them okay. Right? Maybe the culture's not very good, but you know what? Actually, I'm paid enough for me to deal with the bullshit. I'm paid enough for me to deal with the dickheads. I'm paid enough for me to deal with my dickhead boss. Right? Now, that's a separate conversation on whether you should or shouldn't, right? But the reality of the world, especially at the moment, is if you can make decent money, you should be. Because the economy's in this kind of unstable, maybe concerning place for a lot of people, right? And I think it could affect how people show up. And that's why I asked the question of, like, around mindset. Obviously, we both coach, so that's going to be an element there. But, like, how do we develop this mindset? Because I've been very fortunate where I've been gifted with this mindset, you could say, or I've been gifted with the opportunities to build this problem-solving mindset or this kind of rise to the challenge principle for as long as I can remember. But that's because of my upbringing. That's because of the story that I have, right? And those who are not new to the show will know that. But how do we develop a more resilient, I'll ask you, resilience coach, right? How do we build ourselves to be more resilient to the things outside of our control, such as the economy, such as maybe things slowing down, such as maybe marketing that used to work, maybe not working as well?
Mhm. I think the first thing we need to do is step back a little bit and look at the options and opportunities that are in front of us. So take the career aspect that we've been talking about up to now. There's generally two types of people. There's job people and there's career people. Right. And they might have the same roles in the same businesses. Some of those will be career orientated. They're about growth. They may be about title. They may be about income. Although most people in real terms would rather the higher title than a pay increase, which tells you a lot about reputation and how you're seen. Other people, it fills the day, it pays the bills. We all got to have a job. It's something to do. So first of all, it's thinking about what band you fall into, what camp you fall into. Because, like, you talk about hustle culture and things like this. If you're a job person and not a career person, hustle culture sounds horrendous. If you're a career person, you may not like the term hustle culture, you may have other language for it, but this idea of having that little bit of an extra, something on the side or something that might give you that leg up, that's very exciting and that gets you going. So I think from a resilience point of view, the first thing you need to do is recognize who you are and what's important to you. Because if you're aligning yourself with the opposite of your type, you're setting yourself up to fail from the off. If you're a job person, and there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with that at all. We don't all have to be, aiming for the gold at the end and the first place. If you're a job person, then you feel like actually to have a decent income, to have a decent title that you can turn up to and just feel like you've made something of your life and you're content with that. You've then got to hustle, then you're going to start feeling anxiety. You're going to start feeling burnout. You're going to start feeling stress because you're measuring yourself against somebody else's success metric. You need to be measuring against your own success metric. Resilience comes from, there are 7 key C's to resilience, and I am not going to remember them off the top of my head now, so I'm going to make myself look stupid. I'm not going to bother trying. But one of them is conversation, and one of them is, oh no, the word's gone. When you're good at something.
Consistency at results. It reminds me of oh, that's all right. I'll save you here. It reminds me of Alex Perozzi quote. Competence. There we go.
Competence. So if you feel like you're not competent, competence isn't either. It's not having all the answers. It's knowing you can get there. If you don't feel competent, if you're measuring yourself against somebody else's set of metrics, you're going to fall by the wayside and resilience is going to drop. Sorry to show.
That's okay. That's all right. Don't worry.
And
I think the crux there, and it's a point I was going to mention anyway, which is this UVU principle, right? I think so much of the time we look at where is X person, right? Now, is that a fair comparison? X person may have a family. X person may be 10 years older, younger, etc. than you. They may have a different upbringing. They may have worked in a different culture. They may have worked in a different company, right? They don't have the same reality that you had. That's the reality, right? That's actually the reality. They didn't, right? That could be a benefit, that could be a positive, right? But they didn't. So is it really then a fair comparison? Probably not, to be honest, right? The only fair comparison is, where were you 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, etc.? And are you moving that yardstick closer to what is your true, quote-unquote, North Star? What your quote-unquote value add is, or where your vision of I'm closer living in alignment with, and it can get very spiritual and that kind of thing, but the crux there really is, are you living in correspondence to what really fires you up, right? I've been very fortunate to be able to do that thing for a living for a period of time, right? My results, my reality. Cool, thanks, wonderful, fantastic. Right, constantly trying to get better at it, though, I think is the key. And I think it's not about, very quickly, it's not about, for me anyway, it's not about being perfect and being a perfectionist, because the art of being perfectionist can mean that you're actually not, because it stops you from creating, it stops you from doing the thing, right? The goal for me is, can I make that 1% improvement per day, right? To move myself beyond where I was today, where I was yesterday, right? And it's funny, I was saying to my partner yesterday, I worked like 12 hours yesterday, did a lot of things, got a lot done, cool, still felt like I could do more. Okay, but that's one of the assets and one of the things that I actually have, which is my hunger. I constantly want to do more, regardless of how productive I end up being, regardless of how into something I'm doing and throwing myself into it, right? Do I still feel like I need to do more? Do I still feel like I can do better, etc.? Sure. That's the reason why I'm going to constantly get better, because I have that hunger to constantly be curious and go, well, can I push this a little bit further? Can I push this a little bit beyond what I'm capable of doing at the moment? Can I do this a little bit better, right? What if I try this, right? Etc. But it does open up the question of, like, how do we, I guess in some ways, do you have habits that help you build that mindset? How do we stay course, right? Because it's very easy for us in a good time when things are booming and people are hiring us and we're making lots of money and we're doing projects we love and etc., right? As an entrepreneur, when things are going well, to be like, yeah, this is great, this is wonderful, right? But then there's the days where things are slower. Then there's the days where work maybe isn't there. Maybe then there's etc. And that's what I was kind of implying at the beginning of the show. How do we either build habits, or how do we look to that process and go, okay, I'm gifted with this time. How do we shift that process? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people right now who are struggling but don't want to necessarily say, hey, I'm struggling.
That's a really good question. It's a very complicated question. It's compounding, isn't it? And it's comparison is the thief of joy. So yes, so let's just say that right off the bat, it's internal. It's about how you see yourself, and it's what you're comparing to in yourself. That said, it's very important, again, coming back to these success metrics, that you have an understanding of what they look like and what is healthy. So for example, the example you just gave me of the 12 hours you spent, is it important that you spend the time, the hours, or is it the tasks and the achievement? Because sometimes you can spend 20 minutes on something because you think, I haven't got time for this, I'm just going to do something so that I'm compounding, so I've got my 1%, so I've done something today to add towards the overall win. And actually, that 20% could be something that you frivolously do without thinking off the top of your head, and it makes a massive impact on your goal, whatever that is. Um, and that could be more productive than sitting there with your head down for 12 hours, potentially. It might be the opposite. It might be that you're just in that stage where you just need to throw everything at it. So again, it's understanding your own metrics. It's also important to recognize that quitting is okay. Quitting is okay. So yes, compounding is important, consistency is important. It's very tough to know the difference between a bad day, fuck it, should I give up? And no, now is the time to keep going. This is what we've earned. Or this is not for me and I need to do something else. And they're very difficult to tell the difference between. And this is where coaching and whatnot comes in. So there's that. So it's okay to give up. And it's okay to have an off day. What we're aiming for with the compounding and the 1% and the habit breaking is not necessarily always to go up. Sometimes it's just to maintain. So what we're looking for is, okay, I'm not going to move the needle on today, but what I would like to do is stop the needle from slipping back. Because a slip back one day can become a slip back a week, can become a slip back a year, can become a slip back a lifetime. Or there was this thing I remember when I was 12 and I was really passionate about half pipes and skateboarding, and I never picked it up again. And now I really regret it. And I could be an Olympic skateboarder, I don't know. So it's that, just a little bit, keeping the needle at least flat. So I think in terms of mindset and resilience and habit building, you don't always have to be aiming for the big wins. The 1% can just be doing enough to keep things ticking along, just so they don't fall behind. But a lot of it is language. You have to be very careful how you speak to yourself, because this world is a slippery world and it can very easily feel like a lot of pressure. You can very easily feel like a failure. You can very easily feel like you're not doing everything you should do, and therefore you're a weak person, you're a job person or a career person, and that's shameful somehow, or any of these things, especially if your family or your culture pushes for you to achieve. So we have to be very careful around the language, that we don't make people feel like they can't quit or stop or break or just do what they need to do, because it's compounding and it builds up gradually.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's something that, it's one of those questions, I guess, in some ways, which is, how do you work on a bad day, right? And when I coach people, I say, what's your personal context, right? So have you just gone through a breakup? Has someone just close to you died? Have you just injured yourself? Has a project gone terribly wrong that you personally couldn't have done anything about, but because of a lot of different things related to your own, not within your control, right? Or within your control, right? It depends on what the reality is. But if the reality is around external, how do you then stay strong and stay, okay, I'm going to move? Or like, maybe this month was a lot worse than you expected, right? In regards to workload or work balance, etc., in regards to how much actually came in, right? Because every profitable, really busy business owner for me that I talk to is always doing stuff for free, quote unquote, always related to their marketing, related to their business, relating on the business, etc., consistently, to gain that compounding effect. Now, the compounding effect might just be simply, I shot on a camera today and now I'm sharp again on pulling focus. I'm great at using my camera. So when it comes to the job that comes in the next month, I'm not going to be rusty. I'm still going to be sharp. If it's going to be coaching, maybe things are slowed down for you. Okay, how can I still create content? How can I still articulate why I'm valuable? And then when I go into a coaching session, I can then be present for my client. I can really help them. I can articulate to them why potentially, or change or twist their mindset around whatever it is you're coaching, right? And I think that's the really important point. But it does beg the question, which is, okay, why do we get nervous? Why do we get concerned? Why do we worry about these things, right? Because by proxy, the reason why you have the reaction is because you're worried or concerned, etc. So, I mean, I hopefully you don't mind me saying, but you were slightly nervous about this show, right? And coming on the show, right? Okay, well, let's explore that briefly. Why were you nervous? What about it made you concerned or nervous?
Because I suppose it's the long-term impact. It's the, what if I fumble over my words, which I've done many times. What if I forget anything useful? What if I'm boring? Like, what if I'm dull? And people are like, fucking hell, Snippy's dull. I haven't got time for that. I don't want to be involved there. Because it's recorded, right? It's out there, it's in the ether. But it is a bit of a non-event. And imposter syndrome or feeling a fraud. So a lot of people don't like that term. I don't blame them. It's a horrible term. But anything like that, and anxiety to a point, is sometimes just a sign that you give a toss. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You can't help how you feel. You can only help how you behave, right? You can't help how things impact you, but you can help how your actions. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of imposter syndrome. If anything, I would suggest that you probably need to feel like that every now and again, just to prove that the compounding is happening and you're working towards something, because you should look around and think, fuck me, what am I doing? Like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Oh, what if I can't do this? What if I look an idiot? What if? If you're asking what if, you're probably doing something that you give a toss about, that you want to be seen as good at, you want to improve at, that you want to be an authoritative in. And that doesn't have to be all career-based stuff. And sometimes with the compounding as well, just jump back to that, sometimes it's doing the opposite of what feels obvious. Say that you're a content creator, maybe that's your job, you create content, and your content's been really fucking shit lately, and you're like, do you know what? I'm going to have a week where I do sod all but watch Netflix. Technically, most people would say that's not moving the needle on. Yeah, but what you're doing is you're resting, so you come back sharp and then your content is improved. Sometimes what you need to do is the opposite of what feels obvious. And that's where you have to be careful of the little voice, the imposter syndrome and all that lot that tells you, what you've got to do it a certain way. Comparison, you've got to do it like them. You've got to be seen this way. You've got to, you said to me before we started, by the way, swearing's okay if it's on brand. And I swear a lot. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to swear. How many times I've already, it just calms down. You are who you are, and it's just, and sometimes, the voice in my head's like, well, that's not professional. If I look at these big coaches and these people I want to be like, as soon as you swear, you've lost the argument, right? I'm not like them. They can articulate themselves far better than I can. Well, hold on. If I'm sitting here and I'm worrying about how I sound, that means I care because I want to be good, so it's not necessarily always a bad thing.
I would actually argue a counter argument, right? Because if you want to be really PC, right, then the concept of swearing is you've lost the argument. Sure, fine. But for me, actually, by the fact that you're willing to, in certain terminology, in certain realities, and you do it in a controlled manner, implies that you're actually better at articulation, in my view, right?
Creative.
Right?
Generally speaking, creative people swear a
right?
lot.
But also, again, it's like any marketing, right? If you're naturally going to swear and that's part of your vocabulary and etc., then why would you hide that from your marketing? Because surely you're doing your clients or you're doing the audience you're trying to speak to and trying to reach a disservice by not being you. Because the value you could add by showing up as yourself, authentically yourself, is going to be greater than you putting on a persona and a face, right? If no, I'm not going to be Jeff in a presentation. Sure, there might be one, right, or two, if it adds emphasis to what I'm trying to articulate, right? So I don't hide from it in that respect. And I think that so many times that we go through our lives, we think, what if this view, this word, this opinion, this reality offends someone else, right? Now, sure, we probably don't go through our life, hopefully, I wouldn't anyway, I wouldn't believe, you wouldn't believe, that we go through our lives wanting to offend people. Sure, but sometimes that's a byproduct on doing the thing which we feel is authentic to ourselves, right? Sometimes you may disagree with someone upon a principle. Okay, all that says to me is, okay, cool, we don't agree on this principle. Great. Fantastic. That shouldn't stop me working with them necessarily. From my point of view, at least, that shouldn't stop me being their friend necessarily. In that point of view, it just means we're just not going to talk about that thing. Okay, cool. Right? To some people, that's a deal breaker to them. Okay, cool. Peace. All the love in the world. All good. Go find the person who does synergize with you. Go find a person who the world is abundant. There is more than enough people who can do this well enough for your needs and purpose that is going to fit specifically to you. But also in the same respect, by the fact, and this could be anything, we use swearing as the example here, but this could be anything, right? By the fact you're creating content, by the fact you're consistent, by the fact that I have a complete 100% honesty policy, right? So however I answer is going to be 100% honest. Sometimes that means I burn a bridge. Okay, but that's authentic to me, being 100% honest, and I obviously won't mention the person's name, but I offered them a free video as part of the showcase series a couple of weeks ago. And their response was, oh, no, we're all good. And I said, you've just opened your shop, and surely wouldn't you want free advertising? Okay, fine, have fun, all the best. And for me, that was being authentic. Some people would say, well, I wouldn't have said that. I would have just, no worries, made some BS, response back. But I was like, why are you not taking the opportunity to promote yourself? It feels weird to me. And that's why I question it. Now, maybe that person, for whatever reason, chose not to. Okay, cool. Maybe they don't like the fact what I'm doing. Maybe it's whatever. That's cool, right? But I would feel like I haven't done myself, I haven't shown up in my authentic way if I wasn't honest with that person and said, look, why? Because I am naturally curious. Is there a reason behind it, etc.? And I can give you loads of examples, but specifically, how do we? Because obviously we both coach, so there is clearly something we understand about having a coach, being a coach, etc. That can help our clients, but in layman's terms, someone listening to this who's potentially considering it, why would you say someone should have a coach? What's the objective, right? Because there's obviously a financial transaction there. There's obviously a time investment there. There's an energy investment there. But why should someone consider it? Like, what are the benefits in having a coach, quote unquote, would you say?
You get to be ugly in a world where you're not allowed to be. So we all have ugly thoughts. We have confusing thoughts. We have contradictory thoughts. Some of them we're far too ashamed to say out loud. Some of them we imply. Some we hide in humour. Some, some people like you have 100% honesty and will just say them. But generally speaking, most of us have an inner world and an outer world. Well, we have three worlds. We have our inner world. We have our outer world, the people we love and care see. And then we have our outer world, which people who we don't love and care for see. And often there is huge discord and disconnect between those three worlds. And that's where you feel uncomfortable, you feel misaligned, you feel like that rubbing feeling, like something's not quite right. People talk all the time about being authentic. It's a major buzzword. Be authentic, be authentic, be authentic. But a lot of people don't actually know what that means. All they know is they've got these thoughts and feelings that constantly conflict and bump against each other, and it infuriates them and they don't know how to handle it. When you work with a coach, we air those feelings. There's a safe space for you to say whatever you want to say. I've had people come to me literally because they're thinking about cheating on their wife and they need to figure out, do I cheat on my wife? Or is this just basically some sort of crisis of identity? 9 times out of 10, there's symptom and cause. The thing they come to me is not actually the issue, and we get underneath it. And that's the other bonus of working with a coach. So we give a space where you can squeeze the spot and get all the gunk out. We understand what's causing the spot, what's causing the bruise, and we teach you how to stop poking it. Right? So we find the bruise, we understand what causes the bruise, and then we stop poking the bloody bruise. And most of these things you can do on your own. I would not suggest that you pay loads of money for a coach if you haven't got it. There are resources, there are materials, there are things you can do. But there is a level of support, there's a level of understanding, there's those light bulb moments you have when you work one-to-one or in a small group with somebody where the space is held and you can be truly honest and say the most grotesque things that are in your mind, and you just get them out. And then you think, do you know what? I don't even know that I believe that. Or why did I think that? You just get to the bottom of it. We heal the bruises. And this can be, people have come to me because, I procrastinate on emails. I procrastinate on emails, and I know my job's getting behind because I've got 350 emails every morning, and my limit is 50. Over 50, I start getting nervous. Turns out that their best friend just died, and it reminded them of when somebody else died when they were a child, and they weren't coping with anything because the bruise was so deep. And we had to get to that point where he could basically say, my best friend's an arsehole because he left me. He didn't really mean that, but he needed to say it to someone. So coaching, it just lets you be ugly. And being ugly is important in a world where everything's kind of got bloody filters.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think that's the first. I've obviously interviewed a lot of people about coaching and a lot of people about mentoring and so, and that's the first time I've heard it put so succinctly in the context around why, right? So I'll bridge that a little bit more for the audience's sake, and I think it's important for people to appreciate, and it leads on to my next question as well, which is around how do you find the right coach for you, right? But the crux there, I think, is really important. You've got to fully, and I mean this respectfully, fully trust the person you're going to be actually the coach, like the trusting in coaching with, right? Because if you don't, And if you're potentially getting multiple perspectives, or you're etc., whatever it may be, right? You're a little bit held back for whatever reason. It's not going to work, right? It's not down to you. It's not down to the coach. The synergy just isn't there. The trust isn't there, right? And I think it's really important to firstly understand, what do you want from the coaching experience? What do you personally need or want from it, right? Number one. Number two, is there a specific area of expertise that you do or don't want them to talk about, right, in their sessions, and you and them want to work on? Because there is mindset coaches, there is career coaches, there is marketing coaches, there is sales coaches, there is doing backflip coaches, there is doing basketball coaches. Everything you could possibly think of. If someone knows how to do it, it's very likely they're also going to coach on other people how to do it, right? There we go, right? But the question is the person... So the question I have for people who work with me, or anyone listening to this that is either looking for either of us to work with either of us, is the following question. Is the person that you're looking at as a coach further ahead than you are in what you want them to coach you on, right? If it's mentally, would you say they're stronger willed? Would you say they're more balanced? Would you say whatever characteristic you're looking for from them, right? Or if it's a marketing coach, is their marketing better? Subjectively, non-subjectively, do you feel it's better? Their approach is better, their understanding is better, their knowledge is better. And this isn't what piece of paper do they have, what practical realities are they articulating, and or what are they doing in that thing that you can then see and go, okay, yeah, they're doing that, so I can see it. So number one, what is it that you want a coach to do? And then, can you find someone who's further ahead than you? Number three, can you actually work with that person? And this is the one where you have to be 100% honest. Because if you think I'm a prick, you're not going to work with me. Simple as that. Right? It's just simple as that. You're not. But if you're like, actually, Colton challenges me because he doesn't let me bullshit, okay. I've had some clients say, actually, that's the reason why they work with me. Because I won't let them kind of pussyfoot around it. If there's something wrong, we'll go directly to the problem. Right? If they said they would do something, I will not necessarily bollock them why they didn't do it, but I will ask them questions which are uncomfortable, which is, well, why didn't you get this done? Why wasn't this happen? Why didn't this happen? But how does someone listening to this specifically look to choose, or what things would you say they should look at when they're looking for a coach? Or is it down to the coach to say yes or no?
I don't know, both parties. But I will come back to that, because it is a relationship at the end of the day. I don't know that I necessarily agree with all that you just said, because I think that there's a difference between mentoring and coaching. And as you say, there are different types of coach out there. So it depends on whether what you want is goal orientated, or whether what you want is personal development orientated. So if you're goal orientated, if you want to increase your finances, you want to get more clients on the books, you want to I don't know, set up online courses, then there's an obvious goal. We start with none, we end with one, and then we work together and you show me. That's mentoring. And yes, I need you to be further ahead than me. You need to have experienced this. You need to know what works, what doesn't work, and you need to talk me through the steps that you failed at and you succeeded at, so that I don't fall down the same pit holes, and I pay you handsomely for it. So that's more mentoring. Coaching, you don't have to be ahead of the person that you're helping. The concept behind coaching is, actually, I don't have to have fuck all knowledge about what you're going through, theoretically, because the idea being the answers are already in you. I'm just asking you the questions and giving you the support to unlock it. So by that concept, the CEOs and the bigwigs in the getting exec coaching would really struggle to find a decent coach, because they would be working with people that are exactly the same as them that have retired. That's not necessarily helpful, because they won't be helping them challenge their mindset, because they're made of the same ilk. So it very much depends on what you're after. So I kind of half agree with you, but it depends on what you're looking to achieve. I think if you're looking more for an emotional, like, confidence or resilience or personal success or work-life balance or leadership, it helps to have someone that's experienced things like leadership. There's no point speaking to a school kid on how to lead a team. You're right, within reason, but that alternative experience might be just enough to ask the right questions to make you have the aha moments. I work with CEOs. Theoretically, I suppose you could say I was the CEO, but it's also just me. So I'm also the cleaner and the receptionist. So, there is an element of that to bear in mind. So what is it that you want? So yes, what is it that you're looking to achieve? Is it a specific goal, or is it a general, you know, clean up, game up type situation? So that will impact who you're working with, goal orientated or not. The other one is definitely relationship. Relationship is so, so, so important. So there are no new ideas, right? There are hundreds, thousands of coaches out there. If anything, there was a massive boom a few years ago. I think it may have slowed down a bit now.
Yeah,
There are so
especially
many
during
coaches out
COVID
there.
as well. Like, especially when online was a big
Yeah,
thing, it was like everyone's a coach.
I was one of them. I fell down the hole, but I've managed to stay in the hole. Hey, oi, oi. Um, but find a coach that makes oi, oi jokes. That's what I recommend. But it's really, really important that you find someone you vibe with, because there are no new ideas. What they're bringing to the table is generally, they might have more experience, but generally the ideas have existed for a long time. We're all taught the same things. We all have the same experiences. We all know the same psychologies and all of this sort of thing. So you're looking for someone that doesn't intimidate you. So if you're turning up and you think they're going to bully you into success, they're not, it's not going to work. You're not going to show up. Encourages you, makes you feel safe enough to be uncomfortable. So you want to be uncomfortable and you want to feel safe being uncomfortable. And someone who challenges you just enough that you walk away and think, fuck, I wouldn't have done that without them. But you're okay with it. Most of coaching is work you do for yourself. You come away, you have the conversations, you come away, and then the week or so afterwards, you have little eureka moments. Most of it's what you do yourself. That coach's job is to encourage you to be the best version of you. You have to find someone that suits you. There are plenty of butterflies and rainbow coaches out there. And if you're a butterfly and rainbow person, then that is exactly who you should have. If you're I don't want to fuck about, I just want to get this shit done sort of person, then we talk to someone like me and you. It's courses for courses. So that's what it's relationship, but it's choosing someone that will. So number one, understand what it is you want to achieve. Is it goal or is it not? And number two, finding someone that you vibe with, someone whose personality you enjoy, who you enjoy being around, who pushes you just enough that you're uncomfortable, but comfortably uncomfortable.
I think that's a really important point, and I think sometimes we underestimate what that could be for other people, right? So let's say I'm used to training at a Pacific yardstick, right? I'm used to it. I'm conditioned to the muscle pain. I'm used to and conditioned to me doing it consistently, etc. But then if I go and have someone who isn't used to that, and I try and and they try and then do the Olympic training, they're going to get demolished because they haven't built up to that level. In the same way, when we look at coaching, if the person and the way I articulate or the way I think about it is, what's the pace of the reality? So again, what do you expect? What do you want? What are the goals? What are you trying to achieve? And then at what pace, right? Now, the unfortunate reality is, if you want high achievement goal in a short period of time, you better pay well for it. Because you can only have two, right? You can have speed, cheap, and good, or you need to choose two of these, right? So if it's good and speed and quick, it's going to be expensive, right? And etc. But the key, as you say, is number one, building the development of the relationship as you move forward. But also, that's where I came back to that trust thing. If you can't be 100% vulnerable and 100% trust the coach or the person you're working with, then it isn't going to work. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how good the coach is, regardless of how amazing they are, regardless of what strategic ideas they put in your mind or help you articulate, etc., it's never going to work, because you aren't going to be in the position where you can be truly vulnerable, which in turn means they don't necessarily know how to articulate themselves to get the best response from you or trigger necessarily the correct ideas, right? And as people develop and as the relationship develops, you can have deeper conversations, of course, right? This is not our first conversation. Therefore, it's going to feel a lot easier than someone who potentially comes on the show who I don't have a long-term relationship with, right? But for those who have really, really enjoyed this conversation, who want to hear some of your content, want to read some of your content, see some of your content, hear more from you, where's best for people to connect with you?
Best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm quite easy to find. There aren't many Snipps out there. Feel free to call me Snippy, by the way. Anyone can call me Snippy. So yeah, best place is LinkedIn. If not, I do have a website, eversnipp.co.uk. And there is a little form in there where you can get my email address or sign up for a chat if that's what you want. Happy to chat with anybody anytime. But LinkedIn is where I do most of my daily content posting.
Fantastic. And for those who've got this far into this episode, what would you leave them with as a piece of advice to move forward with, whatever that means for them? So moving towards their Northern Star.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it really, really comes down to understanding what your North Star is. So many people think they know, they don't. And hint, it's never the money and it's never the title. So it's if you're gonna put everything towards running towards the shiny object, make sure it's a shiny object you actually want.
Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gents. I hope you took value from mine and Emma's conversation. If you did and would like not to miss next week's episode, why not be subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the new content we're going to be creating. I've got loads coming, loads happening. So thank you so much for coming back and join me once again. And I'll see you very, very soon.